Well, you need some kind of guidance when you select a manager. It's not easy to put your savings into the hands of someone else. So you can't select someone based on his eyes and the color of his eyes or the way he tells a joke. So you have to have something. And looking at past performance normally is a good indication in other areas. So if you're choosing a doctor or a plumber, it does give an indication for future performance. The problem here is that people apply the same methodology in investments, and they think that someone that created outperformance in the past will continue to outperform in the future, and that research has shown that doesn't work. So past performance is not an indication for future performance. That's not just a disclaimer at the bottom of a fact sheet. That's the actual reality proven time and time again. So there must be a different solution for that, and that's what we're basically offering. So pricing has been, the pricing of the fund, the cost of the fund is been proven to be one of the major determinants of future performance, of whether the fund will be able to actually create alpha to outperform its benchmark. The other is if the fund manager is in place for many years, he's happy with the place he works at, he's fully motivated. That's another factor which is important in terms of the chances of creating alpha in the future. The active share of the fund, meaning how much of the fund actually differs from the benchmark. Is the fund manager doing something differently, or is he buying more or less what an ETF vehicle would offer? So the active share of the fund is another major determinant. You have things like whether the fund manager is invested in his own fund, whether he has skin in the game, which is another important factor in selecting a manager. These are all important factors which have much higher weighting in determining future performance than past performance. Just to explain what we do, I think the simplest way is to use the wording that Financial Times adopted. Morningstar meets TripAdvisor. So if people know how TripAdvisor works, it's very similar. What we do is we attract fund buyers, professional fund buyers, to come onto the platform and to rate funds. We just provide the technology for them to add the information. We make sure that they are truly professional fund buyers, and we calculate an average rating of those professional fund buyers on the platform. So we show end investor or other advisors what the rating was of the fund, what was the average rating that these professional fund buyers provided, based on the different parameters that I mentioned. So the fund buyers that rate the funds, they can select or rate the funds based on any parameter that they wish, and apply that onto the platform, and we just present the end result to end investors or other advisors, meaning the projection of the fund in a forward-looking way. In order to motivate them to share their opinion, we didn't just count on the human desire to share things like on Facebook. So we actually offer them a tool to create a proven track record for themselves. So they rate a fund. We compare the rating of the fund with the actual performance of the fund. And if there's a match between the rating that they provided and the actual performance, they receive a high ranking on our platform. So if they rated a fund, let's say 5 stars, believing the fund will significantly outperform its benchmark, and it did, then they have a high ranking on our platform, meaning that they have an edge in terms of fund selection. And that's something which is missing. So these professional financial advisors don't have a way of exhibiting their talent to potential or existing investors. So that's a great advantage of using Sharing Alpha from their standpoint. So the advisors are ranked based on their performance in terms of fund selection, as I mentioned. This, the robustness of this ranking obviously increases as time goes by. So if someone has a high ranking, but it's only based on his fund selection in the past 6 months or 12 months, you could give it some value, but obviously someone who has been exhibiting similar performance but over a period of 3 or 5 years will have a better chance of retaining or gaining new clients because he can show and exhibit a long-term track record. And that's helping us from a business standpoint because we're trying to attract more community members to join, more professional fund buyers to come onto the platform and rate funds. And the fact that they can build a long-term track record by joining early on at the moment basically incentivizes them to be one of the early adopters. If it was if there wasn't that kind of mechanism in place of that a long-term track record is more valuable than a short one, probably most people will be standing on the sidelines to see how sharing alpha develops. The fact that they have that kind of pressure helps us bring on these professional fund buyers to start building up a proven track record, a long-term proven track record.